Hello, everybody. And first of all, I want to ask you a question. How many of you do some kind of things with the SAP security? Oh, see many hands. Okay, nice. And how many of you read or see my previous slides, hacking SAP users? Okay. So this will be the extended part, and I name it 1.1 because there will be some differences between my previous presentation in Hack in the Box Malaysia. There is some differences between my face and our logo. We a little bit changed, but we don't change it in mind. So I work in the Digital Security Research Group. It's our international subdivision, and we are making ERP security assessment and developing ERP security products. And we have a digital security company. It's a company based in Russia who most market is security assessment and compliance, etc. And here's a list of my different activities. Okay, so here's a little agenda about my slides. First of all, I will cover the SAP security area a little bit, and then I will talk about the attacking SAP users. Then I have a prototype of the SAP Stuxnet scenario. So, and I will talk about the mitigations. The ERP systems. What is the ERP? So in every big company have a system that managed all the financial flows, all the human resources, all the products. All these resources are managed in one system. And this system names the ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System. They also have a CRM, the Customer Relationship Management System, and etc. So if you are a hacker, if you want to steal the corporate secrets or make a fraud or sabotage, you don't need to hack the domain controller or the other servers. You need to gain access to the ERP system, and that's all. You have everything in the system. So the problem is that now a very little amount of companies care about the ERP security, about the technical sides of ERP security. So they think that ERP security is most about the roles and profiles, so it's kind of segregation of duties that one man can do this. One people cannot do dangerous things, but they don't care about the unauthorized persons can access to the ERP system, for example, from the internet and etc. So the number of the vulnerabilities in the ERP systems grow. I named it also, it's the database software and application server vulnerabilities. I mean them because if you have an ERP system, it needs to store this data, and they store it in the database. And I told about the application servers. So, for example, the PeopleSoft ERP system, it used the Oracle BioWebLogic application server. It's a part of the PeopleSoft. So if we are talking about the ERP systems, we must talk about the application servers and the database security too. And as for the SAP, the number of the SAP security nodes really grow. So about 4 months ago, I see the 400 security nodes, and last week I saw the 560 security nodes. And last month was 40 SAP security nodes. For 1 month, 40 vulnerabilities. You may think that, for example, ERP security is as everything else, but it have some kind of features. So, for example, first of all, it have a very complex structure. Have many different components in the different servers. So it's very hard to. So you must know everything about the security of every component. Second is it's mostly installed inside the components, so security researchers it's hard to, for example, download and install SAP because it's about 40 gigabytes to download and 1 or 2 weeks to install. And have vulnerabilities in different levels in application, in database, and etc. And the main problem is the customization, because you will not see the same SAP installation in 2 different companies, because it have about 30% customization. And the last problem is it's rarely updates, because of the customization. Some of the updates can harm the system. So SAP security, as I told before, the problems can be in the network architecture, in the operation system database, and in the ERP application, and of course in the client side. So in this talk I will cover only the client side, because it's impossible to talk about everything in one talk. If you are interested in the SAP security, you can read my previous slides from different conferences, and also they have Mariano Nunes who talked about the SAP security. So why attack clients? We have a real-life situation when we were pen testing the SAP installation, and the SAP service was separated from the corporate network, and it was a problem to make something, and the only one thing we can make it to attack users, and then from attacking users to gain access to the ERP system. Another thing is why to attack users. Users, they're secure. In every company there are about, for example, you have 20 SAP servers, but you have 2,000 SAP users, so you have a great chance to hack somebody. And they also, you can attack users from the outside the company, and they're stupid. Yeah. So the main client-side software to connect to the SAP system listed here. So the SAP GUI application is the most popular, but there are also many other applications and technologies. By using them, we can also connect to the SAP servers. For example, the new application that we're a business client. It's a new technology, and we also have some kind of vulnerabilities reported in these products, but they are now they are patched, and maybe later we can tell about this. So SAP GUI is a very popular application in corporate companies. So, for example, the security researchers every day sitting in the Twitter, the young people every day sitting in the Facebook, and people in the companies every day sitting in the SAP GUI. All they're doing, they are making transactions in this application. So, and instead of the popular applications like the Flash, like the Internet Explorer, people know that they have vulnerabilities but they don't know that SAP GUI can have vulnerabilities too, and that's a problem because it's rarely patched. So let's attack them. We make research in the area of the enterprise application security. and create a sub-project in OWASP and name it OWASP ES, Enterprise Application Security. So one of the area of this is the front-end vulnerabilities. So this is a list of the top 10 popular vulnerabilities in the client-side software. And we collect these vulnerabilities from the different ERP applications that we were assessed. And SAP GUI have almost all the problems that can be found in the client-side application, because this SAP GUI is very big and application. It's kind of 700 megabytes. The first is buffer overflow, but I mean it's not only the buffer overflows. It's like in the memory corruptions and it's format string and integer overflows and etc. And the buffer overflows they are mainly in the ActiveX components in the client side. So in the SAP GUI application have about 1,000 ActiveX controls, really, and 60 of them are vulnerable, so maybe others are vulnerable too. And of course there is a problem in the third-party components. So for example, there was a history about one third-party component that information about the vulnerability in this component was published, but the SAP don't even know that its component is used in SAP GUI. So after half a year, we noticed that this third-party ActiveX control is used in SAP, and they patched it. This is the timeline of the founded vulnerabilities, and the history is from the 2007, and still we found some vulnerabilities that information will be published later. So you see it's different kind of, it's the buffer flows and insecure methods and the format strings and the memory corruption and the heap overflows too. So the buffer flows is funny, but it's not all that you can do. So there are many very interesting insecure methods. So you can use some methods to download and execute some code, to read some files, and even connect to SAP from using the ActiveX control, because in SAP GUI there is a 1,000 ActiveX controls, and using them you can create everything that user do by the ActiveX controls, and you can for example remotely connect to the SAP server and make other things. So here's the first example. It's exploit to download and execute, and there's very funny, there is a function named comp download in ActiveX control, and I don't know why they create this function. Maybe it was needed, but you can put any URL from what download the file and any file name to save it. So you can upload to user station malicious code and install it into the Windows startup, for example, and it will be executed. The next is really very funny, because we found the ActiveX control with the function name execute, and you can insert anything that you want. So we execute the program net.exe and we add the user to the user's workstation remotely, just using the ActiveX control with this method. The next thing is overwriting the files. So some ActiveX controls have functions to save something to the save files to the operation system. So we can overwrite, for example, the SAP logon. It's a file where the information about the whole SAP server stored. So if you overwrite it, the user cannot connect to the SAP server. It's a kind of a little denial of service attack. And of course, you can steal credentials when using the SMB relay. So you can use the file on your attacker's machine, and you can put the fake SMB server, so you can steal the credentials of the user who are working on this machine. The next thing is insecure scripting methods. So the previous things, insecure methods, it is the vulnerabilities, and they can be patched. These things are not vulnerabilities, it's just features to get automatic access to the SAP. So for example, we find the ActiveX control that can make the remote logon to the SAP server using the RFC protocol. And it's named SAP Logon Control Protocol. And we found the control that can download the tables from the SAP database, any table. So by using the ActiveX methods, you can, for example, give the user link to the HTML page, which will try to connect to the internal SAP servers using, for example, default credentials, and download the critical information from the servers and upload it to the malicious site. And the second method, there is a GUI scripting possibility. You can write the Visual Basic scripts to make everything you use in the SAP GUI. So for example, you can push some buttons on the SAP GUI and write it like a snagit. It will write all your motions, all your mouse motions and all your keyboard motions, and write it to the Visual Basic script file. So you can upload this Visual Basic script file, which will open the SAP GUI, log on to SAP GUI, executes transaction that will make, for example, send money from the one account to another, etc. And all the things can be done automatically. Of course, there is a file handling vulnerabilities with the different file formats, and we found one of them, and it's still patching, but it's very interesting thing. Next one is provoking our risky cryptographic algorithms. So the SAP GUI connects to the server using the DIAC protocol. It's a proprietary SAP protocol, and it's not encrypted. It have some kind of compression, but one guy released a decompressor, so you can easily decompress all the traffic from the SAP clients to the SAP servers. And another thing, if you use a web GUI, it's like a SAP GUI, but using the browser. The passwords are encrypted by the base 64, but it's not encryption. And we have a vulnerability in the visual admin protocol. Visual admin is a tool to manage the Java instance of the SAP server, and it also have problems with the password transmission. Next thing is the storage of the sensitive information. There is a file and a SAP shortcut, so every user can create a shortcut to connect to SAP server, and he can put the IP address of the server and username and the password, etc. And in the 7.1 versions of SAP, it was restricted. You can restrict storing the passwords in the registry, but in new version, you can store the passwords, and they can be stealed. So another file is the SAP logon. You can find the information about the all the SAP servers in the company, and also they have trace files, and there is information that in the trace files you can find the passwords. But I tried, but I don't find, but information exists, so maybe you can find it. And the most interesting thing is that there is many other files that can store the SAP credentials. It can be Excel files, so many companies use the Excel files to download some information from the SAP tables and to synchronize it remotely. So they need the Excel files with the Visual Basic script, which connects to the SAP server with the hard-coded credentials, and upload this information for synchronization. So you can easily find the Excel files in the user workstations or in the shared folders, and they store the passwords. And also, you can find just Visual Basic script files that, for example, make some kind of automation job, some kind of GUI scripting. And there is a company Pivot that have some kind of products. So, for example, about the Excel, so if you just write the SAP logon control in Excel, you will find many forums where people are talking about how to synchronize the Excel files with the SAP. And here's examples. So one man say, okay, you need to use this Visual Basic script, and here you need to put your name, and here you need to put your password. So people are using it. So it's a reality. And it's very funny things. There is a application to upload the info cubes. It's information objects in ERP system. So this application can it's like a ODBC connection to the download this info cubes, and they write. So there is a problem to save because SAP restricts saving the, as I said, the credentials in a file, but they write. It's official document. Let's say so. There is a workaround. You need to find the OQE files that created with this application, and sorry, and you can find these files. You need to find this string where is the password stored, and you can write the password in the string by your hands. So it cannot be done automatically, but you can rewrite information in files. So using this trick, you can store the information in file, user credentials in files. So it's very funny, and users use it, and you can find many these files with the SAP credentials. And buffer overflow vulnerabilities. Remote vulnerabilities also can exist in every application, and it was found in the SAP GUI, in LPD. Yes, LPD is a printer extension for the SAP GUI. So you can use this vulnerability remotely just by using the Metasploit. So it's very easy, and everybody can use, for example, AutoPN to the for the corporate and find some SAP GUI workstations with the LPD, turn it on, and have a shell. And also the very popular now DLL hijacking. It also exists in SAP applications, and SAP now thinking about the better solution that the Microsoft have. So information will publish later. And of course, it was a program vulnerabilities, but there is a implementation vulnerabilities. So in some companies we see, for example, the SAP GUI distro is stored in the shared folder. So users can have access to the SAP GUI distros and the config files and upload the new or download the new versions, but an attacker can easily have access to this shared folder and override distributives or override the configuration files and, for example, change the IP addresses of the SAP servers to the fake SAP servers. And we find some companies that have unsecure access to the shared folders with the distributives. However, there are many problems, and we need to automate it. And we decided to create the tool, the sapsploit, which is this kind of HTML page which tried to load all the possible ActiveX vulnerabilities and try to execute it and gain access to the user workstation. It was the first idea. But the second idea, it was, okay, we have a shell, what next? And we create the SAP Trojan. So this is the Visual Basic scripts that use the SAP ActiveX controls, logon control, and the table read control. So this is Trojan tries to connect the SAP server and upload the critical information and send this to our servers. So how it works? After we have access to the workstation, we collect information from the SAP GUI SAP logon file to find the address of the SAP servers. Then we try to use the default passwords, and then we try to read the passwords from the files, different files, and there is a cool thing about the brute force. So in the old versions, you can brute force the password by the RFC, and the password locking mechanism are not working if you try to connect to the RFC. And here is the list of default passwords. There are many default passwords, and the TMS admin user with the password is new things because it was found about a year ago by us, and many companies really don't even know about this user. So and then we try to connect to the server and download the critical information. So there is a table user 02. It stores the users and passwords, but passwords are in a raw format, so it just it, it cannot be used. But anyway, you can upload or you can download the information about the company customers, information about the banking accounts, and etc. And the goal of this presentation on this tool is to show the how the critical this information. I'll show demo this next. So about the web clients, you also can attack the web clients, and you can also found the SAP servers using SAP docs for the Google Docs and the Shodan docs. But about the web attacks, it's many SAP servers are many SAP software are now on the web, and you can attack the web users. So and all typical the vulnerabilities, the web vulnerabilities exist in SAP. So if you're interested, you can read the details from my previous presentation. And here's information about a little bit about Stuxnet. So how many of you know what is the Stuxnet? I think everybody. So it's a computer worm for the SCADA systems. It uses 5 or maybe 6 days, I don't know. And it uses the default passwords for connecting to the SCADA servers, and this hook the application API. So it's how it works. But and we know the same thing can be in the SAP, because there are many client-side vulnerabilities, server-side vulnerabilities. It also have a default passwords, and it also have a ActiveX controls and etc. to automatically connect. So this is a possible scenario of the Stuxnet for the SAP. We have a SAP GUI, we have a list of default passwords, and we can hook the RFC connections. So you can easily exploit the SAP GUI by sapsploit, and then you can connect to their systems by using the default passwords and etc. So firstly, you find the servers on the internet, then you exploit them by the server-side vulnerabilities and install a exploit pack, and then you Trojan the clients, and then you use the default passwords, and you hook the application up API, and steal anything, and can do anything. So there's a really very possible scenario, but don't do this. Okay, so I'm trying to talk about only about the problems, and I want to make solutions to people and how to solve these problems. And we wanted to make something to exploit, to increase awareness to people, but without exploiting it. So we create the ERP Scan Online. It's a service, and using it you can check how your SAP frontend vulnerable or not vulnerable to the ActiveX vulnerabilities and etc. So it don't install any software, and you can all the things made by the ActiveX calls. And so here's, I'll show it. Here is the working result that's it found. I just ran it before, and now I will run it again. Try to run it again. First of all, you need to answer some of the awareness questions. So it is not the only the we're not only checking the program vulnerabilities, we're checking the user awareness level. So for etc., do you use Internet Explorer, or do you know what is the safe for scripting on, or etc. Now we submit and scan. So the scanning, by the scan, we're trying to call the ActiveX controls that are possibly vulnerable, and try to know which the version of this control. And we have a big database of all versions of the ActiveX controls, SAP ActiveX control, which is vulnerable, which is not vulnerable. And using this database, we can say by version if it control vulnerable or not, or if it exists or not, or if it can be or etc. So here we see I use the SAP GUI core version 6.4, and here's attention, you need to install new version, and here's a list of the buffer overflow, vulnerabilities, and security methods, all the things that I was talking, all the things exist in this this front end, and also the different add-ons for the SAP GUI and etc. vulnerabilities also exist, and you can see the SAP note or see the advisory. And here's my awareness level. It's 0 because I don't answer the questions, but if somebody will answer the question, we'll show that here's awareness level. And then you can see the awareness demo, but I will show it on my computer. It will be faster. So once upon a time, there was a very secure company, and there was hackers in the internet. And one day, they tried to steal the corporate secrets. How did they do it? They use a social engineering mail with a link, and this link store the ActiveX control, vulnerable ActiveX control in SAP GUI, and then attacker can get access to the user workstation, and now user in the corporate. So then he tries to read the SAP logo. So it is everything that I was talking in this talk, but describe it more to the people who maybe don't know these things. So, and then how the attacker can access to another system and etc. So, yeah, I have some time. I'll try to run to run the sapsploit. Here's a folder from our server where the server side of the SAP exploit is stored. So here is the folders with the information about the every hacked user. And we're trying to go to this link. And then the Internet Explorer must close. And I hope exploit will work. Yes, I think it works. And then we go to the server and waiting for the information. Oh yeah, okay. So it's new IP address. And here's the vulnerability which worked. Here's the brute force log. So now we trying to read the SAP logon ini file and trying to connect to all the servers. And with the default credentials, you can see the brute force logs, can't log in with the default credentials, SAP and etc. Then we need to wait, and the next time, okay, I'll show the working example. So here is the brute force log, where logon is okay, and we brute force the default password. Now using this password, we're trying to download the tables. So here's a table with the users and their hashes, and here's a table of the company clients. Here's a list of company clients, so you can do something with this if you know whom to sell it, etc. So here's a little bit of statistics. Which we collect by our scanner. So it's about the 70% of users use the SAP GUI 6.4, and it's very old and it's vulnerable. So as a conclusion, you see that for the one talk, I've tried to give you all information about the security of SAP users, but it's impossible to talk only about the SAP users in one talk. So there are many other critical problems in the SAP. So if you, for example, have a SAP SAP servers and you try to secure it, so if you are ready to work 24 hours every day, you must use it. If you don't, I think maybe you should give it to professionals. So if you have questions, I will answer it.
Thank you, Alexander.